Pickleball is an increasingly popular sport in the United States, but has led to conflicts as more pickleball courts have been built, increasing noise. So, for those of you who are unfamiliar with pickleball, it's a lot like tennis, but it's played on a court a quarter size of a typical tennis court. So, it's a lot closer. So, it's a lot like tennis, but it's on a much, much smaller court. And it has similar noise to tennis, right? Bouncing balls and balls being spiked and paddles and stuff like that. So very similar noise issues to tennis. And this has been a growing sport in much part of the United States and led to all kinds of problems because, now pickleball is happening and neighbors don't like the noise all the time with the ball always being hit it. So led to all kinds of problems. And we're going to cover one such story in the great place of Denver as it relates to the pickleball and pickleball conflicts. So let's learn a little bit more. Pickleball-loving Denverites, that would be Denver, of course, Colorado, may have had sour news when they learned pickleball courts would be closing and no new ones would be built. Very sad. But instead of being silent, they're swinging back. So the conflict between the pickleball lovers and the pickleball haters, of course, involves the pickleball attorneys. So maybe, the yodeling pickle is but an emblem of future careers for us all. Attorney Holland Hoskins filed an administrative appeal to the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board, arguing closure of pickleball courts and rescission of new courts excludes pickleball players from certain parks, violating municipal code regarding proper notification. And the reasoning contradicts advisement from other city departments. So yeah, they're filing saying, hey, your failure to approve courts and your rescission of approval of courts you already gave violates procedural. We need procedural due process on our pickleball. We are very serious about it. This is a novel experience, they wrote. We're sensitive to residents because we are residents and homeowners. We're sensitive to their right to private use and enjoyment, but this was not done correctly. So yeah, the issue with noise and traffic and people and the quality of life to Denverites in the news. In the case of pickleball, the great citizens of the city of Denver's love for the sport grew exponentially during pandemic, which, it grew exponentially in a lot of places. A cross between tennis and ping pong. It's simple to learn and easy on the body. Yeah, so it's very similar to tennis. Ping pong, yeah, sure. It's about a quarter, the court's about a quarter size, so it doesn't require as much running around as tennis does. Easier to learn, easier on the body, and easy to get outside. We were in total lockdown for a long period of time. People started to get a little stir crazy and go out of their house, and pickleball fell into the safe space. Pickleball bridges all societal gaps. That is the most important thing about pickleball, is that it exposes us to tons of different abilities, ages, ethnicities. All that stuff is swept aside, and all we do is share resources. I can't think of any other community in the world, any other sport that provides all that. The pickleball brings people together, but it also divides communities. So it brings communities together. It divides communities together. It's insidious. At Congress Park, Gilmore said the agency and Denver's Department of Public Health have received complaints regarding the parking concerns, pickleball players using tennis courts, which, that's not what they're for. They're for the tennis, not for the pickleball. And they don't have sound mitigation. And most importantly, noise complaints. Going back to October, government board over here who doesn't like fun received several complaints from nearby residents and conducted sound tests, finding noise levels will go above the allowed 55 decibel level. And, and also it's a very sharp noise as well. So it's the sharpness of the noise as opposed to being a more continuous noise, which also has interesting issues when it comes to noise. One solution to the problem was to move the courts at Congress's Park further into the park. They apparently already had plans to close some of the courts due to asbestos. So apparently some of the courts at this park are so old, we're concerned about asbestos. But why would be concerned about asbestos on the courts of the pickleball where people are running around and bouncing balls on the surface of the asbestos? Why would that be a concern? To solve the problem, they also plan to add 4 courts as part of the park support improvement plan, but on April 3rd, all that changed. Wow, the drama is so real. The park told the news that the courts would not be built and pickleball would not return after the asbestos abatement because noise is too big a problem. So what is a bigger problem, the asbestos or the noise? Unclear. The park said that any new court must be built more than 500 feet away from homes to avoid any noise problems. He later said, okay, how about 350 feet? The courts that were proposed would be 300 feet away, and the courts that had existed were only 100 feet away. So, but maybe if we make them further away, that will deal with the noise problem. So how about not 100 feet or 300 feet? How about 350 feet? And these are simply too close. We need to build courts in a location that minimizes conflict, not create conflict. The pickleball conflict is real. The pickleball activity in the park is negatively impacting others. We as the Parks Department across this country need to minimize the conflict, not increase the conflict by adding pickleball courts where they really shouldn't be. That goes with anything. You look at the athletic fields. You don't just drop an athletic field in the middle of a neighborhood with lights because that would impact quality of life. The Parks Department is very, very serious about where the pickleball courts should be, wanting to try to make everyone happy. And of course, people are unhappy. The Parks Department said that players acknowledged the thwack of the tiny ball is loud, but the closing of the parks was arbitrary and capricious. So, we know that the noise is loud, but you still discriminated against us, and that's bad. They have learned of the decision to remove pickleball from the park from the news, apparently. This would violate notifications as it relates to ordinances, because, when government acts, typically it has to give notice. So apparently they didn't give the right notice in closing the pickleball courts. So we're concerned, you didn't follow due process where we could come to the meeting and talk about our love of the pickleball. Turning to Denver-specific law, because why not make this a legal discussion? According to Denver-specific law, Chapter 39, for those of you who want to look it up at home, when the Parks Department is going to set a rule, they must first bring the plan to a board. The board provides a notice and comment session, and then a public hearing is held. However, if the manager deems the amendment to be an immediate public health issue, then they don't need to give the notice and comment privilege. So, yeah, there's apparently notice and comment privileges, but if it's a health issue, then not so much. But those directives can't be in effect more than 180 days, and these would be permanent. So you're violating Chapter 39 of the Parks and Recreation Code. How exciting. They knew they were going to make a decision, and then they decided to design a media campaign of fabricated information and disinformation to announce a temporary directive. The attorneys for the pickleball people said, it's an arbitrary and capricious, unreasonable unilateral decision. I'm asking the board who oversees the department to intervene. Wow, the pickleball lawyer is really, really, really serious, guys. Fabricated, disinformation, arbitrary, capricious, pickleball. Pickleball is real. The park, for their part, says the decision wasn't made without some thought. The park said the department had been thinking of new ways to solve the issues with the pickleball, including disputes with other guests. And apparently there was also an arrest relating to the pickleball. Alson Gunny, 71 years old, was arrested for criminal mischief because he drew boxes on a rec center cork floor with permanent marker to indicate boundaries for pickleball. So we have a 71-year-old being arrested for marking with permanent marker. Pickleball arrest crime. Pickleball crime is on the rise. We have seen a 1,000% rise of pickleball-related crime. The 71-year-olds are nefarious, man. They will wreck your life when it comes to the pickleball. Pictured here is a 71-year-old scofflaw who is causing problems in the pickleball community. When will the youth learn, man? When will the youth learn? In corruption news relating to pickleball, yes, friends, we have pickleball government corruption. The corruption in the pickleball. There apparently is a marital relationship between one of the council members and a brother who owns a construction company that has received many city contracts. So apparently there is some concern with potential self-dealing or familial dealing as it relates to pickleball-related construction efforts, because maybe the brother of the council member might do the pickleball courts. So we've asked to look into the relationship between these people. Fun. Everyone wants the resource, and Denver Parks and Recs has not listened. This is an important issue. It's important for the citizens to have a voice. I hope this advisory board will step in and really help us reach a reasonable solution for all of Denver. We just want a seat at the table. Pickleball to soon get their nameplate at the UN as an NGO. The pickleball lobby soon to appoint an ambassador, I am sure. Thus, that brings us to the end of the discussion about Denver's issues with the pickleball. But those of you who know about pickleball know that Denver is not alone in these issues. So this is just one vignette of a scene that is playing out over and over again across this great nation of ours. From Denver to Richmond, to Miami, to San Antonio, to Los Angeles, to Portland. The pickleball is everywhere. It is consuming us as a nation. And much like Denver, these great cities are also facing their own problems when it comes to the pickleball versus non-pickleball people, when it comes to noise, when it comes to traffic, when it comes to people, and it comes to the population. And then we'll have to support the people with the pickleball. There will be stands where people will buy hot dogs. Then we'll have to get vendor's license for the food trucks. Where will it end? Where will it end? There is no end in sight as it relates to this pickleball drama, as one city tries to confront it in a story being repeated over and over. And that brings us to the end of discussion of this tale.